Welcome Maureen on stage.
Thank you. Well, with that intimidating introduction, thought that what we could do is, there was some interesting material that came from Cordis about this idea of the big shift. It's been a theme. So there's so much happening in technology right now that it's almost mind-boggling to think about how to spend 30 minutes talking about a big shift for someone like me that covers a large range. I have a team of people who cover large ranges of technology. So what we decided to do was really our shift, the shift we want to cover is how you reorient your systems to focus on customers. So it's a design pattern that we're going to go through for the next 30 minutes. If I can get this to work. Okay. All right, let's start it out. Which would you pick out of those two? If you wanted to buy that, which one would you pick? Oh, okay, the left one? Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I'll take the right one.
And there you have a competition, right? Yesterday we heard some interesting things about creation versus competition. And the pace of innovation is very, very fast, but the pace of companies' ability to compete is even faster. So the idea that you could actually innovate and let that last for more than a blink is almost impossible. So what you're left with are people who want to buy your product, and they all kind of look the same, even though we know as product people, ours is brilliant, everyone else's is terrible. This is what it looks like to people. So how do they pick? Well, it's an emotional decision. Most decisions are emotional. You want to feel good about who you get behind. And so the issue right now then becomes, how do you create this glow around your product so that people can emotionally attach to you and then build a relationship? So I was listening to Guy Kawasaki. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was the original evangelist for the Apple Macintosh. And he goes around the world. He's considered someone who is one of the most brilliant influencers that's ever existed. And so he wrote a book about what he calls how to be enchanting. And when you look at the rules of being enchanting, what you have to do is be likable. You have to be trustworthy, which is interesting too. And you have to have a great cause. That means that you're building something that's meaningful to people. And so, when you look at how a lot of companies are focusing on, improving their relationships with customers and delighting their customers, and there's a whole bunch of ridiculous things that people talk about. Roughly 90% of the investment right now is how to barrage customers with marketing, which is why there's so much of a flow of of technology budget to marketing. But what's interesting about this is this idea that you actually have to be trustworthy. And that's what we're going to focus on. Because what they're talking about is that enchantment is a process, not an event. And that you have to build a relationship rather than focusing on just getting a sale. So those are his rules about how to be influential. And most of us here care a lot about being influential because we want to get people behind us. We want to have that glow around our product, even though it's increasingly difficult to differentiate. That's a mistake. It should be, let's talk about the process. So now, let's think about our systems, what we're faced with right now. Our systems are really, what I have is different colors here. So if it's yellow, it's our customer system, and if it's green, it's the enterprise application, and if it's purple, it's a partner. All these things are different silos, and none of them sort of care about the customer. So there's no design there's no customer in the design of these different applications. And by and large, we spend a lot of time making sure that all those systems are always up and running. We have all these disaster recovery, all these different things, and we just assume that if all these systems are working, that's pretty good. What's the issue? But the fact is that a lot of these things are outsourced, And none of our systems, even our partner ecosystem, never has been any holistic design about any of that. So the question that you have to ask is, oh, and also, here's the other thing. The interdependencies are incredible. So when you go from this, all of these different silos, the customer thinks about that, which is all of the different activities. They don't think about it, but whether they have a good experience and you're trustworthy or not, or whether it is something where people are upset with you, depends on whether all of those things work in that sort of diagram. This could be any process. So right now it's more of a sort of a, I think an order to cash, more of an order to cash. And the other thing that's happening is that everything is happening faster and faster. When cycle times go faster, mistakes start to accelerate too. And we have more process sprawl. Everyone's talking about cloud. And so things are sprawling everywhere, outsourced, the supply chain outsourcing, the cloud, acquisitions. The sprawl is pretty unbelievable. And customers are not willing to be patient with us anymore. They see 2 black boxes, they emotionally invest in one, and if they emotionally hate you after they invest, they're gonna leave. So we have a situation where we go to work every day, we work on applications, we assume everything is okay, we think that we control our workday. And that is really the wrong way to think about how to work. When you think about the complexity that we talked about, the potential for systems to go wrong is unbelievable. I mean, there's almost 100% chance that amidst all of this complexity, that there are going to be problems. And despite the fact that we know that there are going to be problems, even though that we hope there aren't, by and large, customers are the first people to tell you that you've made a mistake. That's why there's so much investment in call centers. People are saying, let's fix our call center, let's fix our self-service website, and in this case, it's on the inbound side, so that it's really easy, so that they have a really pleasant experience when they call because they're really angry with us because something went wrong. So that doesn't really seem like a really good way to design your systems around your customers. How enchanting is it when a customer is the one who has to tell you that your process is failing? So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about rebuilding or rethinking this problem. And when you look at it, and in the previous slide, we had these little red dots that said that each of those points are moments when you can tell when something is going wrong, if you design a way to tell you that something is going wrong. And so when you start thinking about designing for customers, you have this opportunity to design to look at your patterns around the different activities around the customer that will tell you as quickly as possible when you can predict that the outcome, when you can predict a problem with the outcome, or when you can predict that there is an opportunity that would give you a positive outcome. So for this example, you might say that, by the time we just finished and we handed off from, system A to system B, or system C to system D, we already know that we're going to be late on delivery, even though we've got many, many steps to go on it. Wouldn't it be nice to know that, and then also to work out something with your customer that you are going to be late, and then give them some kind of offer to make them not hate you, to keep that yellow glow. And then the other thing is that there's also a lot of work going into, whoa, we just saw this person do this and this and this and this. That is something that fits a promotional pattern. If we make that offer right now, we're going to be able to have a high likelihood that they will accept the offer. So there's this good and bad, yin and yang here, opportunity and problem detection that become really important when you're thinking about building systems that are designed around a customer. So the thing about customer-centric design is that it's our contribution on the technology side, our contribution to becoming trustworthy, to a customer. There's a lot of things that affect trustworthiness, but one thing, a key thing about trustworthiness is that when someone does business with you, it works. It feels comfortable. You get what you think you're getting. And when we look at system design, we can control that element of trustworthiness. And as we do it, when you talk about the customer complaining, when a customer complains and that's the first time you heard about a problem, that's the most expensive time to solve the problem. The cheapest time to solve a problem is early in the process, where you could either make it not be a problem, or you can fix it and mitigate what the problem is. And so when you start thinking about customer-centric design around this idea of problem detection, opportunity detection, that's when you can optimize revenue, but you're also really focused on improving profitability. So it's one of those things that you can have your cake and eat it too, which is rare. So what we have focused on at IDC, we started looking at this problem of detecting problems or opportunities. And we came up with a model that we call a decision management model. Because really, at the end of the day, what I talked about, everything I've talked about right now is either decisions that you should have made, but you didn't know about, or decisions that you could make if you had a way to let you know, to tell you that a decision needed to be made. And so what we did was we came up with this idea of decision management, and what it is this systematic use of technology to automate the process of making decisions. In this case, we have these 3 bubbles in the middle: big, medium, small. They're really tied to the strategic nature of the decisions. The big bubble, strategic, these are major, major decisions that absolutely move the needle of the business, good or bad, depending on the quality of the decision. But you don't make very many of those, and you really, you spend a huge amount of time on those, but you hopefully don't make too many of them. The middle is the process, the operational decisions. Is my sales process working well, or do I need to change it? Is my supply chain working really well? Do I need to change it? And then the bottom, or the top, the tiny little one, those are tactical day in and day out decisions that you're making that affect trustworthiness and affect companies' profitability. So what we're going to focus on for the next couple of slides is this idea of thinking about the tactical day-to-day decisions and how to understand what those are, focused around customers. So you look at it, and when you make a decision, there's a set of activities that no matter what you do around a decision, you kind of go through. Decisions are very process-centric. So we have different verbs here, and we'll go into this in more detail. So the first thing, we're going to cover these in groups, right? So the first thing that you want to do is discover and detect in this. Identify and initiate, so for decisions. So we have these discover. So a discover really can mean a couple different things. It can mean, let's discover how our process works. We showed you, there was a slide that had a bunch of silos and then a bunch of boxes that transitioned to a process view. And so a customer, every single transaction, every single customer you work with, you have a process for that particular customer because they're purchasing different services from you. So what does that customer's view of the process look like? That's something that is really important that you devote discovery time to. It's not necessarily how I want the process to work, my process. It's how the customer wants my process to work that you design for in this sort of scenario. The other thing is that you also spend time thinking about the patterns that allow you to detect when a problem or an opportunity, when a condition is present that says it's time to make a decision. And so let's give out some examples of that. So one company I work with had They were, they're an energy company. They had problems because customers were really excited to do business with them. They would enroll to get their power turned on, and they had such a problem with lights turning on that I think they were failing about 34% of their enrollments. And so they said, oh, well, what we need to do is put in a new ERP. So they put in SAP, did this pretty big, expensive project. And then they ended up saying, okay, how's our enrollment doing? 34% failure rate. And it's because what happened when you look at the process that they went through with the customer, they had all these different dependencies that had nothing to do with SAP to make that work correctly. And until they figured out what all those different dependencies were, they couldn't actually figure out where the problem was that caused them to fail to push the transaction forward to do all the activities that would allow them to turn the electricity on when the company moved in. That was a huge thing for them. Once they had that thought, then they could figure out how to build a detection system that said, what's my pattern? What does my pattern look like? What does it look like to have a process that does this and this and this and this? And if it fails at any point, I need to be told. Once they got that built, they ended up having, I think their rate went up to 98% success, which was a pretty dramatic thing. Another pattern is, another pattern that's actually really interesting is a bank that has 100 million customers. And what they want to do is become, they want to have a bigger portfolio with each customer. So they decided that what they wanted to do was be highly relevant to each customer. So they dumped all of their transaction data about those customers, all the behavioral data into Hadoop. And they ended up coming out with this idea that at any given time, each of 100 million customers would have 1,000 unique offers that could be made to them based on patterns about what sort of offer would be accepted at that particular moment. So you think about that. The discovery part was figuring out the patterns for each 100 million customer using Hadoop. The detection was then something that had to be initiated in a real-time way as well, so that when people were using any of the banking services, they would know immediately that they could make an offer to them and they would have a high rate of acceptance of that promotional offer. So this works opportunity and problem when you think about discovery and detection and notification. The next phase of it is once you've notified that a decision needs to be made, there are different techniques about how you deal with how to respond. So you go through this analysis and decision phase. And so that depends on if you're in that situation with the bank, you have to automate the decisions. There is no way that you can respond to that kind of activity without having really strong automation, in which case rules is incredibly important in this, and as well things like complex event processing, which is rules in real time. And so you have to do that. But in other cases where you might have fraud or any number of activities where you have a special situation, it may be that you need to put a team together, you need to collaborate, you need to have all the social mechanisms to pull people together, to have experts help you out. In that case, what you have to do when you're doing the decision part of it is you end up setting up a case and creating an environment where people can share and work together to figure out how to solve a problem and come up with some sort of resolution. So again, depending on what you're trying to do, you're either automating this or you're providing resources to people so that they can work together to decide. And then once you decide, again, there's all sorts of mechanisms. We talk about the bank with the offers to the 100 million customers. And for them, their decisions are, do we send it out by a text message? Do we send it out by an email? What are the mechanisms we send out the offer? And then how do we have them, what technology is in place so that when they accept the offer, we can fulfill what we said that we would deliver to them? In other cases, it could be something fairly complex. It could be, we thought we onboarded a customer really well, and oh, we didn't. We made a mistake. So now we have to make a decision about what to do about it. We've solved it. Now how do we get them back on track? And so you have to create a whole system of steps that you need to take to make sure that customer is on board. So again, the resolution of it is really dependent on what it is that you're trying to do. It could be something where you're sending something to a text message or an iPhone app that goes to e-commerce that then has to get fulfilled in the back office. It doesn't matter. The issue is that you're building this process of making the decision, and you're putting technology in place to make sure that you can then act, follow through, discover, detect, analyze, decide, act on that. And you basically then have a way to systematically do right by your customer and make money doing it. And so the other thing that we did is we sort of, this is like a stack diagram for decision management. And one of the things that you can see is that it's sort of business process management. Even though Cordial is not a BPM company, I would say, well, pretty good BPM capabilities. But a BPM offering is core to this. Or, you look at workflow, then you also add case management, you add the different containers that for the user interface, all of those different elements you put together in your stack. The other thing that you have is decision automation in it. And depending on what you use really depends on what problems you're trying to solve. But you always need to have some kind of analytics, some kind of complex event processing when you're doing highly complex, high-speed detection systems, or rules if you're doing lower speed things where you don't need to know right away, but you do need to know that you have to detect. So anyway, this is our view of what a decision management stack looks like. We don't have, per yesterday where we talked about data, obviously you need to have a way to manage the data, and you need to have a way to integrate data, manage state, all those other things. But these are some of the tools that you need to do to design and execute a system that focuses on decision management. And then finally, advice. So the issue, I guess the biggest thing about it is that, we can't control likability by and large. When we build systems, likability is, oh, it really works. That's as far as we can go. Trustworthiness is the same thing. Oh, it really works. You try to have other people. Marketing can build in likability. Product can build in likability because they've got a product that's so elegant or so wonderful that you love them. But really, when we think about it, trustworthiness is something that should be the role of technology. Trustworthiness, system trustworthiness. Make whatever offer you want marketing. We promise that our systems can deliver it and give you the experience that you're looking for. And we're not going to be the ones that cause people to be upset, or we're not going to be the thing that's trustworthy for the customer. And so the other thing that I wanted to point out is that we're seeing a huge wave of, those black boxes we started with? Technology is becoming the differentiator in so many different areas. If you look at automobiles, the technology is the differentiator. If you look at tennis shoes or sneakers or sports shoes, technology is the differentiator. If you look at some of the things that Nike is doing, all sorts of physical goods that we deal with are all being built around this idea of a service layer. So technology is incredibly important to that service layer. And again, foundationally, if you're going to build service, you have to deliver service, not be a point of annoyance. So this whole idea of identifying, detecting decisions, understanding each day that you're at work that you know what the top 3 things are, top 3 decisions you have to make on behalf of your customers because your system spent some time to let you know. These things change how businesses run and are ways for a company to deliver trust as well as deliver profitability. And I have some questions. We have 5 more minutes. I try to leave some time for some questions. So, any questions?
Just a remark. I think you just gave us an alternative for Six Sigma.
Oh, I'm not smart enough. You know.
Well, I think you have.
But I mean, it's not like it's not a measurement framework. It's just what do we need to do today to make sure that we're doing right by our customers. You know, it's really a simple idea. It's really interesting to implement.
But it's an interesting framework you gave us.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, anyone, any other questions?
We need a little time here, yeah. I would like to stress that it's not only a IT thing, but it's an attitude of people, and it is very much a human activity to help people and be searchable and trustworthy. So a lot of people can flourish if they are very good at it. They can have great work environments supported by the things you say.
Right. You know, that's actually a perfect point, and I should have made it earlier. I mean, one of the things the thing that bothers me the most about applications, I mean, almost everything that gets implemented custom, even with BPM, they're applications, right? And the thing that bothers me about applications are they're built around the assumption that I know what's best for me to do. I walk up to the application, I'm going to do this because but that has nothing to do with the business value that you need to deliver at that moment. So the problem is that people who try to do right are trying to do right. And the systems are built so that they have a lot of opinion but no information. And so when you start reversing the model and saying, all right, I don't care about my applications, I care about the queue, that's my work queue, and I understand that the top 3 things in the work queue that I'm dealing with right now deliver the greatest value to my company on behalf of my customers. That's what's missing for people to deliver the best possible value to their business. So you're right, you're absolutely right. I always forget that. And I try to get things done quickly, but you're totally right. But the systems need to help out people to do the right thing. That's kind of where I was going with that. But that was a great point. Yes, next. How many of you are doing something like this? All right. We can monitor this now. Next year, at least one person. Yeah, it's a radical. It follows in this idea of event-driven business. And you know, when you look at all the things that are happening in social media, and if you look at Facebook, it's event-driven. You know, all these events pop up, and oh look, Susie just did this. Isn't that interesting? And so we as consumers, we use systems that are like this all the time. In business, we don't. That's going to change pretty quickly. And similar to, what was the thing, not best of breed, or best practices, but next practices? Next practice. Okay? All right. Anything else? I think yes?
So I guess the corollary to your proposition, not really sure if I'm completely correct, but would it be okay to say that, you know, business intelligence is eventually going to override the need for big data analytics?
I think that so first off, a detection system doesn't drive off of BI. Okay, it's a different technology, okay. But BI so it's a spectrum, similar to what Johan had yesterday with data warehouses and big data and in-memory data. So BI is something that, you know, BI covers a whole spectrum of analytics, ranging from data mining to reporting to, you know, to basically, well, reporting and you know, free-format data mining are the core things. But big data, or when you look at Hadoop and and all of that. You know, Hadoop is storage, and MapReduce is this thing that does parallelization around what you want to analyze to find patterns. So it's a spectrum of analytics, but rules are a spectrum of analytics, and complex event processing are a spectrum of analytics as well. So that the term analytics is broadening out, and it's the most confusing thing right now in technology. When I talk to customers, they're trying to understand what analytic to apply to what, to what decision they need to make, and what is the best technique for discovery, and what's the best technique for detection. So analytics is everywhere. That you need for building these systems. It's just the different core technologies that you use are different based on what it is what your requirements are.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, definitely.
Does that make sense to everyone? I mean, who else is confused about analytics? It's really exhausting. Okay. Any other? I think we're out of time. Any other? Or are we done? Okay. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, Maureen, for sharing your perspective on where the market goes, not just from a technology perspective, but putting it in the business context of customer enchantment. Actually, we have a present for you as well, and this is one of a series, and I hope that you will be completing the series in the next occasions. So you got the first one out of 5. Okay, so
thank you.
Yeah, you're on the hook. Good.